The Sorceress of Zan Esu is back in Diablo 4, but what are the tiny details you may have missed in their gameplay trailer? Like my previous videos on the breakdowns of the Druid and Barbarian, a lot can go unnoticed in the 20 minutes of gameplay we've received thus far, including locations, items, weapons, abilities, and of course, lore peppered throughout. So without further ado, let's break down everything we've seen of the Sorceress in Diablo 4. Before we begin in the Kor'bak crypts, please give the video a like. It helps conjure up favor with the algorithm Hydra. Like the Druid and Barbarian, the Sorceress has a unique system of dealing with her resources. Unlike the other two classes, which utilize readily available abilities that act as resource generators for use by more powerful abilities, the Sorceress instead steadily regenerates mana over time. However, even without mana, she's not without attack options. The Sorceress has access to lesser powered abilities like Frostbolt to tide her over until she's accumulated enough mana to use spells like Fireball, both of which are on display as our Sorceress decimates the hordes of undead. Further ahead, around the same place as before, we see the legendary Stone of Jordan, a returning item from Diablo 2, one which lives in Diablo Infamy, though now we're given a deeper lore description than we were in Diablo 3, which merely poked at the stone's use as currency on Battle.net, and it reads, "The ring is the work of an unknown Amulet mage. Sadly, the secret of its creation was stolen, and the mage's name erased from history by the clan to which he belonged. Barrett's Book of Implements." Now that was a fantastic way of writing a character into the lore that was previously written out of the lore within the lore. Blizzard loves their retcons. At the end of the crypts, we bear witness to the ultimate spell, Conduit. Our Sorceress becomes a living incarnation of lightning and zips around arcing bolts of pure energy and reducing an entire swarm of ghouls to lifeless flesh. This spell is similar to the wizard's Archon spell in Diablo 3, completely transforming the mage who harnesses these energies for a brief period of time and losing access to all other spells in the meantime until their ability's timer ends. Outside the crypts. En route from Kor'bak crypts, we see once again the Quill Rats making their return from Diablo 2, surrounding another landmark which appears to hold a Vegvisir, or Viking compass, which is used to aid someone in finding their way in rough weather. An awesome metaphor given the druid's penchant for storm magics. It's here that we see the attack potential of the charging beast, which eats around a quarter of our Sorceress's health in one charge, even at level 20 when she makes short work of everything else. Moving across the great highlands of Skosglen and encountering a pack of Khazra, we catch the Sorceress utilizing her defensive spell, Blizzard, which slows and damages enemies in a short area with cold damage. This is one of the Sorceress's abilities that not only costs mana, but is on a reuse timer. Much like the ability she uses to wrap up the fight, a falling meteor conjured seemingly out of thin air to deal massive damage in a small, localized area and dealing fire damage over a short period of time. Further up the path, while encountering another pack of goatmen present during an area corrupted shrine event, the Sorceress utilizes another of her crowd control abilities, Lightning Spear, which she tears through multiple enemies like Yondu's arrow, dealing immediate electric damage as it passes by before pulling all of her abilities together to obliterate Lilith's lackeys with Meteor, Fireball, Frostbolt, and then melting them as a conduit, earning her reward of a rare piece of equipment. As we continue, we're once again immersed in an area where social activities take place and witness several other players vacating an area where a public event just transpired, possibly a local event or even the world boss, Ashava, the Pestilent. Fast forward ahead, en route to Garenhold, we run across the Fallen, the disgraced demon armies of Asmodan, cursed by Diablo to become scavenging hordes of cowardly fiends. When this occurred exactly is unclear, but their failure aided Asmodan in dethroning the primevals during the Dark Exile, which followed the Sin War, our current topic of our discussion in our Discord Lore Club. As I mentioned in the Druid video, they've infested the Garenhold area and the dungeon therein. After felling Zaroska the Cursed, a fallen overseer with the frozen affix, we encounter a new type of enemy, the Wood Wraith. This lumbering mass of wood takes a few extra hits to kill, providing a welcome distraction for use by the Fallen to keep adventurers busy while they swarm. We also see some Fallen minions picking on hapless resident of Skosglen, having ventured too far from the safety of the walls of Korbach, a show of the living atmosphere present within Diablo 4. After a mad dash through a sea of Fallen and the familiar ominous loading screen, we finally get to explore Garenhold. Presented with a simple task to destroy 3 fallen idols, we begin to move through the hold. And I'm guessing by fallen idols they don't mean figures like Clay Aiken or Kelly Clarkson. Oh my fucking god, Tails, no. In my defense, Tails, the lore master of Diablo on Discord, wrote this script and he just threw me a curve, but that is the worst joke, dude. I'm gonna pretend that never happened. Moving on, our sorceress is met with scores of fallen, including a champion shaman right out the gate. Here we see the resilience of the creatures in Diablo 4. Even at level 20, the sorceress really has to work to survive, dashing through fallen onslaught while avoiding the shaman's mortar and spells, and dealing with the constant revival of its minions is a good bit of a challenge, but she emerges triumphant all the same. Further down the line, the sorceress is presented with a Dol and Vex rune, which are covered in our other class breakdown videos, which you should check out if you want a full description of the runes in Diablo 4. At the first of the fallen idols, the sorceress is met with a huge number of fallen. In sheer numbers, this would prove a daunting task were it not for the use of Conduit to burn down the crowd. A major draw to Garenhold, at least at earlier levels, is the abundance of heroic enemies, making the dungeon a potentially great spot for farming decent gear, and with the game's key leveling system will even allow for higher level gear acquisition as well. As the sorceress passes seamlessly into the ritual den of Garenhold, our spellcaster encounters a large group of fallen overseers and lunatics. Yes, the exploding psychopaths of the fallen family return with a new design. Instead of the small glowing pygmy fallen, these lunatics more resemble their lesser kin, though with their explosive sack appearing on their back as a bulbous growth. However, looks aside, they can still be tricked into erupting prematurely, rendering them ineffective against the hero. After destroying the second and third idols, a named fallen shaman, Karlok, the Never-Ending, appears. Armed with multiple shot affix, this dungeon boss shows for the second time in Garenhold how treacherous having an enemy like this present really can be. In addition to the multi-shot feature, the ability to resurrect fallen in the area ensures that there is always an additional obstacle to get around while trying to work down the core problem, at least until your cooldown wears away on your ultimate ability and you obliterate the entire squad. This is also a good time to highlight one of the sorceress's legendary staves, Staff of Fractured Flame, which separates her fireball spell into 3 missiles that deal a smaller fraction of damage in exchange for a multi-shot feature to the spell. Returning to Korbach, our sorceress meets with a few NPCs before moving off to put on display her returning skills and abilities. Several great spells are making a comeback to Diablo 4, including Charged Bolt, Nova, Teleport, which we've seen several pieces of legendary gear that affects the nature of the ability, such as randomizing your end location but costing mana instead of having a cooldown, or casting Nova at the end of Teleport, and multiple pieces of gear that can be donned in order to create multiple effects at the same time. It should also go to note that due to the seamless exploration feature of the game, Teleport can be used to traverse 3D shifts in terrain instead of climbing up and down. A minor note though, but kind of cool when you consider how this affects the sorceress's ability to explore the terrain of Sanctuary, much like the Demon Hunter of D3's Vault ability, which is still superior to console roll function, albeit at a resource cost. Additionally, there are a few cool new abilities that have been added to add some different play options, like Arc Lash, that shocks enemies in front of you and returns mana back to you. At the same time, so that you can have more mana to cast your more powerful spells more often, more, instead of purely waiting on your mana to recover normally. Now, we've already seen that there has been a change to the skill tree, which I've discussed heavily in the Druids video, but in terms of the Sorceress, we've seen in depth the changes made. In her case, she's been given the option of allocating her active spells to become passive ones that have an effect of their own and don't require activation, such as Meteor randomly dropping on targets, while you're attacking other creatures with other abilities, which, when you think about it, is actually quite helpful, needing to focus less attention on casting that spell instead of casting something else. This is called enchantment and defines the Sorceress much like the Arsenal and Seamless shapeshifting systems defined the Barbarian and Druid respectively. Check out our September quarterly update video for more information on this system. As a quick aside, please consider joining the Crusade on Discord. We're nearly 500 members strong and counting, and are looking forward to helping you take on the hells in Diablo 4. Plus, we have a lore club if you're interested in getting deeper in Diablo lore. It's linked in the description on the Discord. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching, and until next time, Traveler.